Hi Bookish Besties, my name is Brittany. This is Rescues and Reads. Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you are new, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And if you're a returning subscriber, as always, I appreciate your continued support. Thank you for returning to another video. Today we are here to see if I'm actually reading the books that I haul. Now, I've actually made an entire video dedicated to book buying habits, and I know I've mentioned in other videos my opinions on book buying and how I want to make sure that when I'm buying books that I'm doing so with intention. And so a really big goal of the past 2 years has been to whittle down my physical TBR, as well as to prioritize the books that I'm buying if they are unread. So today we're going to talk about the books that I hauled. I'm not going to run through each and every one of them because there are about 100 or so of them at this point, and I think it would be boring for you to just like hear me list off all of the books that I've hauled and read. So what I want to do is I want to talk about any of the books remaining that I haven't read, why I haven't read them, if there is a reason that I haven't read them. And then I also kind of want to talk a little bit about my goals for book buying in 2025. Now, my original intention for this, to make it fair, since I'm filming this so early in December, it is only December 3rd at this point, and I obviously have a lot of room to buy books in December that would not be making it into this video. I do know that I have my book of the month box coming, and that's obviously full of books that I haven't read yet, and I wouldn't have had the opportunity to have read that. So to make this fair, my intention was going to be doing the books that I hauled in December of last year through November of this year, but I just looked at my spreadsheet from last year and apparently I did not log any of the books that I hauled. The only books that I know for certain that I bought in December of last year were December book of the month, so we're going to go ahead and go with that. But this year I will definitely be sure to keep track of all the books that I buy in December so that next year we can go from December of 24 through November of 25. So if I'm making the assumption that December's book of the month box last year were the only books that I bought, I honestly don't think that I bought very many, so this is probably close to accurate. I definitely read all 3 of those, so we don't have to worry about that. Now, based on my calculations, in 2024 I either purchased myself or I was sent a total of 99 books. And so we're going to quickly go through the ones that I have not read yet and tally up a percentage of what I have read versus what I have not read. So the very first book on here that I haven't read is Morning Star by Pierce Brown. This is the 3rd book in the first Red Rising trilogy. I made the decision that I wanted to retry Red Rising because Fairy Loot was coming out with these incredibly beautiful iron editions. And so I went ahead and reread Red Rising, which I had read for the first time in 2017 when I was a very different reader. I reread it this year and I liked it a little bit better, but I wasn't necessarily as enamored with it as everyone else. But I had the trilogy, so I had to at least give the other books a shot. I did finish Golden Sun a few weeks ago, so I definitely plan on reading Morning Star at some point, but I do need to give myself a little bit of a break. Hopefully 2025 is when I will read that book. So that is one that I haven't read. Another one that I didn't read was City of Stardust by Georgia Summer, which was, I believe, January's Fairy Loot. Now, I have really come to the conclusion that Fairy Loot is just not a subscription that is going to give me a lot of books that I want to read, but I do appreciate the value of the subscription in that it gives me early access to some of these special editions that I might really be interested in. So for that reason, I am not canceling the subscription. I do try to skip the 4 times that I'm able to when I know there's a book that I don't want to read, and any other time I will let myself look at the book on a case-by-case basis to determine if I might want to read it, and if not, I will just sell it on Pango. City of Stardust and most of the other Fairy Loot books that I received in 2025, I ultimately decided were not for me and unhauled. In fact, I don't even know if I actually logged every single one of the Fairy Loot books that I received, just because I knew that I probably wasn't going to be keeping them. Moving down the list, House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas is another one that I didn't read, but in all fairness, I did read Kingdom of Ash, which finished the Throne of Glass series. I also read A Court of Silver Flames, which caught me up with the ACOTAR series. So this is literally the final book that I need to read by Sarah J. Maas in order to have basically read her to zero until the next book comes out. Once again, I just needed a little bit of a break, and the fact that I was hearing not great things about this one lessened my excitement for it. But again, I'm really hoping that 2025 is the year that I will get to it, but for now, it is unread. Similarly, we have Empire of the Damned by Jay Kristoff. I don't know if you're noticing a theme here, but a lot of the unread books that I have so far are like chunky fantasies that I just wasn't able to get around to. I read Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff the year that it came out, and I obviously thought that it was very well written. It was very detailed, but it was also very long, and I feel like a lot of the details of that book are lost on me, so I'm a little bit scared going into Empire of the Damned because I know it's going to take more concentration than I have at this moment, and I don't know when I'm going to have that concentration. So I definitely do also plan on getting to that in 2025. I just don't know when. A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. That is one that I attempted and ultimately DNF'd and decided to unhaul. That was February's Fairy Loot book. March's Fairy Loot, I don't even have the name of it down here. I just wrote March Fairy Loot, so that is obviously one that I didn't read and I didn't keep. Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros is another one that I purchased in 2024. I purchased the Fairy Loot special edition and I haven't gotten around to it, but I think that that is going to be the next fantasy book that I read. So that one will hopefully happen very, very soon. I received Shelterwood by Lisa Wingate from the publisher, and unfortunately, after a couple of chapters, I realized that book was not for me, so I DNF'd and sold it on Pango. All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker was a book of the month selection. I believe it was for July, and that was one that I was expecting to absolutely love with my whole heart and soul, and unfortunately I didn't. I think I got several chapters into it, but the chapters were teeny tiny. They were only like 2 to 3 pages. So I might have been like maybe 50 pages or less into the story, and I wasn't having a good time. I didn't like Chris Whitaker's writing style. I didn't like the way that he was formatting the story, and it just made me unhappy at the thought of reading it. So I DNF'd that one and sold it on Pango. July's Fairy Loot is another one that I didn't read and I unhauled. I've also recently decided to unhaul the August and October Fairy Loot books, which were Long Live Evil by Sarah Reese Brennan and Sorcery and Small Magic by Mai Gadusi, and I believe I skipped September. Getting down to the last few, All That Is Mine I Carry With Me by William Landay was such a kind gift by one of my subscribers, Sherry. It is one that I just haven't gotten around to yet, but I may be able to get to it in December if a couple of my advent calendar books don't work out, because I do have to read something in their place. So if one of those books doesn't work out, All That Is Mine I Carry With Me is definitely a top contender to read in December. Another gift that I haven't gotten to yet was Taming Six by Chloe Walsh. This is something that I received recently. It was completely unexpected, and I do believe that I may be starting the year of 2025 with this one. So I am deliberately holding off on this book for now. All right, and the very final book that I have on here that I haven't read is actually The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent, which is the final book that I need to read in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. I recently got the Fairy Loot special editions of this series, and it just came into me. So I obviously haven't had a chance to get to it, but again, hopefully 2025 is the year for that. So ultimately that is about 15% of the books that I hauled I didn't read. However, out of those 15, almost half of them, 7 of them are books that are still actively on my TBR and I do plan on getting to at some point. So they will be read. The other 8 were primarily Fairy Loot books that I decided were not for me and I unhauled. And then there were a couple of other ones in there that I attempted and DNF'd and ultimately got out of my library. So for the most part, I am pretty pleased with those numbers. Going forward, I don't think I'm going to calculate the Fairy Loot books in these numbers just because I know that a large percentage of them I'm not going to want to read. I know that a lot of you probably think I'm really, really crazy for continuing with that subscription when I'm getting books I know that I don't want, but at the same time, I'm getting a benefit that I feel is worth the monthly cost of the Fairy Loot, and additionally, I can recoup my money for the most part when I resell the books. And who knows, I might get one that I'm actually really, really looking forward to and do want to keep, and when I do get it, I'll have a beautiful special edition for it. That is my reasoning behind that. Now let's quickly chat about 2025. So in 2024, I was essentially not allowing books, aside from those chunky fantasies, to be added to my physical TBR without being added to my monthly TBR. So anytime I got a book in the mail, I was instantly putting it on my radar for that month. The reason I did that is because I consider any unread book that comes into my home as something that is also added to my to-do list, right? Even if it's at the bottom of my to-do list, even if it's not something that I consciously think about all the time, it is something that I do need to do. And so that obviously increases the pressure, it increases the anxiety about reading the books, and I didn't want to have that. So I tried to make an effort to read these books as soon as possible so they were just not languishing on my TBR. Now, while my goal for 2025 is still going to be to try and read every single book that I haul during the year or get as close to that as possible, I think I'm going to allow myself a little bit more grace. I think what I'm going to do is let Libby tell me when I'm reading these books. So assuming they have an audiobook at the library, I'm going to put the audiobook on hold, and then whenever they come into me, that is going to be when I read the books, unless of course they fit into a TBR somewhere and I need to read them sooner, and then I can look into other options like Everand, like Spotify, like Audible, or something like that. But this will allow them to still be a priority for me without needing them to be something that I'm doing immediately to lessen the pressure. As long as I'm not letting them sit on my shelves and languish, I am pretty happy with that. If you have been following my reading roundups and balancing of the books, you will know that at the end of November, I ended up with 9 books on my physical TBR. So those are all those chunky fantasies that I referenced, along with the gifts that I referenced as well. So my physical TBR is under double digits at this point. And if I had been able to read more fantasies in the year, if it had been a less chaotic, crazy, brain-tiring year, I would have probably been able to get to at least a couple more of those fantasies, and it would be even lower. So I am actually pretty proud where I was able to get to my TBR. I don't remember where it was at the start of this year. I think it might have still been around like the 60 mark. I'm not entirely sure, but I worked very, very hard and very diligently to get it to the point where it is. I don't anticipate it staying that low forever because, like I said, I'm going to be getting the book of the month box and everything like that, and I'm not going to be reading them literally as soon as they come in. I'm going to put them on hold at my library as soon as they come in, and then I will read them as they come available to me, and that will just give me a little bit more structure so I don't necessarily have to think about it. I don't have to think about when I'm going to fit the books in. Libby is going to tell me when I fit the books in, and I'll just have to hope that I'm still able to finish my monthly TBRs when I do that as well. So I'm very proud of what I was able able to do with my book buying in 2024, how many of the hauled books I was able to successfully complete, and knowing that really the only reason why it wasn't a larger number is because a lot of these books are those chunky fantasies that I just wasn't able to get to, and I hope to continue that in 2025. For that reason, I'm going to be doing something a little bit differently. I'm no longer going to be having my reading roundups, which I did discuss in my most recent November reading roundup. I will have one more in December, but that is going to be it. I don't even think I'm going to be balancing the books for the month of December. So in 2025, what I'm probably going to do is bring you quarterly hauls instead, and then I'm going to do something a little bit different for the wrap-up format. You'll hear more about that in January. But anyway, y'all, that is it. That is how my book hauling went in 2025. Please comment down below and let me know how your book hauling went in 2025. Do you feel like you read the majority of the books that you purchased? I would love to know. Or if you've made it to the end of this video and you are not feeling chatty, go ahead and leave me a $sign emoji in honor of all the money that I spent on books this year. And as always, if you like this video or if you just like me, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Throughout the month of December, from December 1st through December 25th, I'm aiming to bring you one video every single day leading up to Christmas. And if you don't want to miss any of that content or chaos, please be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. I would love to connect with you in any of those future videos or on any of my other social media platforms, which are always linked down below along with any books featured in the video. Until next time, y'all, bye.